Welcome to the So Social Radio Show. I'm your host, Richard Martin, along with my amazing co-host,
Cheri Martin, and we are the WCN Interactive Team, business growth, marketing, and social media strategists, helping you to
dream it, plan it, build it, and most importantly, successfully do it.
For growth, prosperity, and success. And each Wednesday at 12 noon on TalkNetworkRadio.com, we share tips and techniques to grow you and your business, plus demystify social media and marketing for you so that you can have more fun.
And my favorite, more profits.
And you know, Richard, our topic today is really going to share with our audience how to really make sure they are making more profits through relationship networking.
Absolutely so. I mean, that's a whole key of it right there. You know, if you can't connect, it's over. Mm-hmm. Just go home and go to bed on that. You know, sleep it off. But you know, the relationship networking it's two peas in the same pod. You got to have a relationship and you got to have the networking. And it's just a continual circle of evolutionary growth as you evolve with the people that you connect with.
I know it. And, you know, it's been that way forever. However, I know in business, a lot of times we're more focused on that dollar than we are on the aspect of making a friend and building that relationship and having a conversation. And it is a whole new way to think of sales and not expect that, or sales, I should say, and not expect that instant gratification of just going out and you know, promoting yourself and then closing the deal and in. You know, it's really understanding who you're talking with and how you can really help each other, which is then ultimately going to help both of you.
You know, we have a process that we talk about here, and it's a lot of it is about unselling. Mm-hmm. You know, most people, and I include myself at the top of this list, okay, you know, I hate to be sold to, but I love to buy things. You know, we went out to breakfast this morning, you know, and all these type of things. So it's neat from that particular standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did. We went and we were actually at a networking event this morning at one of our local chambers. And then from there, we met an individual that we had met at another Chamber of Commerce event. And we had a one-on-one together. And we just had a conversation and just had fun with each other and realized just neither one of us asked each other for business.
No, first of all, it wasn't the time or the place to do it. Mm-hmm. You know, the relationship has to come first. You know, if we're going to get into this deeper, but we'll steal Bob Berg's quote. People do business with the people they know, like, and most importantly, trust. And that's where the whole thing stems from.
You've got that right. And before we do really get diving deep into our discussions, we want to share with our audience some two books that we just highly recommend for understanding networking here. And we'll be talking a lot more about networking tips and all that fun stuff. But I do want to make sure that we invite our audience to always connect with us so they can learn to know, like, and trust us on Facebook at So Social Radio Show. And, you know, give us that like and let us know what topics that you'd like to hear and us have a conversation on. We're all about education, and we want to make sure we bring you what you want to learn so that, you know, we are resonating with our audience. What is it that you want to hear from us here on the So Social Radio Show? But before we do that, we want to do a shout out to our So Social Radio Show sponsors and partners.
Absolutely. This is one of my favorite tasks to do on this show. First of all, Toastmasters, a world leader in communications and leadership development. Find out how you can improve your speaking and leadership skills. Visit toastmastersd84.org.
And Constant Contact is another one of our partners, an award-winning company empowering small businesses and nonprofits to grow and succeed through email marketing. You can be a marketer with one toolkit, one login with Constant Contact. So try a free trial account with them. I mean, just try it. There's nothing to lose. They have no contracts. No credit cards when you try their 60-day free trial, and you can actually get started growing your marketing list. But I do want to refer you to a special link so that I can assist you in getting started. Go to bit.ly, bit.ly/WCN free CTCT, and sign up there. Again, there's just no risk at all, but you'll be able to try it and see how it can work for your small business.
Absolutely so. Also, everythingbrevard.com, a Brevard County, Florida community website that keeps you up to date on everything that's happening in Brevard, and get your business listed on everythingbrevard.com.
And our newest partner is Shannon Grunich, who is the visionary of the Business Acceleration Summit, which is going on right now this week, started last evening with their dinner and all day today here in Melbourne, Florida at the Hilton Rialto. But it is the 9th Business Acceleration Summit. And also they have a special day on tomorrow, Thursday, for masterminding with some of the mentors and everything. So it's a great summit. You can actually get more information on the Business Acceleration Summit at the website, which is businessaccelerationsummit.com. Find out when the next one is. I do believe there's going to be a cruise in September. So you'll want to make sure you connect there with Shannon at the businessaccelerationsummit.com to find out how you can get involved in the next summit that she has going, especially if you like to cruise.
That sounds like a good one for me.
All righty. So I wanted to actually just share a quote from one of my very favorite authors, and I have a bunch of his little books, and that is Jeffrey Gitomer. And this book that I'm going to give this quote out is his little black book of connections. And it's 6.5 assets for networking your way to rich relationships. Before I mention this quote here with our audience, I just want to make a mention that this book was actually written and published back in 2006. And it's one of his, he has a number of books. I think the Little Red Book of Sales was the very first one we purchased.
Yep.
And really has some great stuff. But I will say Jeffrey Gitomer, and that's Gitomer. You can go to jeffreygitomer.com to get more information about him. But he's a thought leader, definitely way before his time. When I read this book back again, when I was a Business Network International BNI director, when I was teaching networking classes, I was actually introduced to this book here. And everything, I mean, I read this book all the time. I have marks in it. I have, tabs folded, everything. But his quote that he has in the very beginning of the book is going to be really leading into what we're going to focus on today. Because, again, this was way before we even really started networking online. It was more of the face-to-face networking. He goes, everyone wants to be rich. Although most people think being rich is about having money. Rich is a description for everything but money. Rich relationships lead to much more than money. They lead to success, fulfillment, and wealth. And again, it's all about relationship marketing and networking.
It is. The whole thing is about it. The whole world revolves around relationships.
No doubt. I mean, well, think about, couples, before you get married, you have to build a relationship. You have to get to know, like, and trust each other.
At least, yes.
So why not take that whole premise into business? When we first started our business in 98, And and I worked for companies prior to that. I did, customer service and networking, etc. I know that you have been in corporate the 1,000 companies, 500 companies, all those. But everything that you did was building relationships. You just didn't go in and say, okay, buy me, and then sign on the dotted line. You had to have some type of a process. What did you do back in, should we say the dates, back in the 70s and the
back
80s?
In the 70s,
in the 80s?
My most, the three main jobs I had back then, the primary job for all this was working with Jimmy Dean Meat Company, which unfortunately Jimmy's not here anymore, and neither is Jimmy Dean Meat Company. They sold it off. But the whole thing was, I started out as where my education was coming out of Mizzou as a food chemist. That's what my background was. And I started analyzing all the food products that went out for fat, bacteria, all this other stuff. Because Jimmy's process back then was there were no antibiotics or other chemicals that were in there to preserve the shelf life. And Jimmy demanded a 60-day shelf life from pure products. So you can imagine how clean things had to be. So when you look at that, that's not something any one individual can do to clean a whole production plant, much less with all the oils and greases and that type of stuff that would come out of hogs and that type of thing. But, the whole process was I had to learn to rely on other people. And that was really the first time in my business career that I really had to delegate. So I started out as a laboratory guy and ended up as plant manager. I got to that because of people knowing, liking, and trusting what I had to say on that. So the whole premise of The Go-Giver and the whole premise of Jeff Gitomer's book is how can you be liked and respected?
And The Go-Giver is a book by Bob Burg. And both of these books, we highly recommend that every business person, every marketing person, every salesperson reads these two books. They keep them in their library. I know we have quite an extensive library in our home. And these are two books that most often are not found on the bookshelf. They're on our desk because we keep referring to them. But The Go-Giver is just a fun book that Bob Burg and his
John David Mann.
Yeah, John David Mann. They wrote together, and then they have their part 2 of The Go-Giver, Sales More as well. So these are books that really show you the value of the conversation, of just really being comfortable talking to people, and as we call it, networking, because networking can happen at any time. When two people meet, that's when networking really begins.
That's when the opportunity, the spark is generated at that moment. And the first thing that happens in the thing is not networking. It's a very simple statement. Do I subconsciously trust this person I'm in front of? So the issue of trust jumps out immediately, and it's not from anything we have overtly said or done. It's that vibe that we all give off. This person, I like this person. Haven't got a clue why, but, I enjoyed the conversation. I want to carry it on farther. I want to know more. So when we look at this networking scenario that we talk about and we all practice through chambers and leads groups and socials and parties and birthday parties with our kids. It doesn't matter where it is.
I would say you can even do it in the grocery line. You know how many people I've met in the grocery line?
You're the master of the grocery line.
Or sitting on the bleachers at a sporting event. Way back when. It's just having, when two like-minded individuals start talking and they start just relating with each other, they start having that conversation, and you never know where that can lead to. I mean, even if you're, even for individuals that are not working and you're maybe a volunteer at the school that your children are going to, and you want to feel more comfortable going there. I remember so many times meeting with other mothers or other parents in the line when I was dropping my kids off to school, and we would just start having a conversation, and the next thing you know, you're starting to form these little groups where kids are at school. We go have a little, maybe a coffee or something along that line, but you're getting to build that relationship. And I can tell you that through the years, a lot of those relationships have really helped me in my business. I've received referrals from people that I met that like I said, the bleachers at the baseball game or whatever, because we were referred to when we had our web design company, many businesses or many individuals, they referred their companies or somebody from their company to us to build their website. And it was just having a conversation, but it was we never talked about business. We just, what do you do? What do you, and then just got to know each other and felt comfortable enough with each other to where we could refer each other. And that's kind of what happened this morning when we did our one-on-one with Brian, when we met him for breakfast, a gentleman that we met, like I said, at a networking meeting after hours at a chamber event. And we just basically found out just so much about him by asking questions, and found out he has lived here all his life, and the people he knows, the connections he knows. You should never, ever assume anything. And we brought that up in our conversation today, that if you're in a referral group or a leads club, and, your business is maybe, I'm just say in the financial or the banking industry, and you meet somebody that is into network marketing, so to speak, maybe maybe they're doing a health product or a makeup product, don't push those people away. Those are professional entrepreneurs that know people, and they're out networking all the time, and you don't even know who their neighbor may be.
That's right. And going through there, do I really care who introduces my next coaching client or my next branding client? It doesn't matter. The door's open. So if somebody, not necessarily who took one of my classes, but somebody that knows me through some other social organization goes, oh, I know Richard. You need to talk to him about branding. You need to talk to him about business growth, and put it together that way. So that's where the fun part is, because there's just a never-ending loop that's there when people happen, and people have that inside gut feeling of, this person's okay. This person's going to be good. They got a good aura, of good vibe around them.
Well, and we're just developing, I guess, mutually beneficial relationships with people that we either meet, as I say, at a business function or at an event. It could be a social. It doesn't matter. But when you start building those relationships, and I love how Jeffrey Gitomer starts in his book, again, the Little Black Book of Connections. It's all things being equal. People want to do business with their friends. All things being not quite so equal, people still want to do business with their friends.
That's an interesting paradigm to draw. They like you, you like them. You don't like them, they may not like you, but at the same time, business is about moving forward.
Yeah, it's about being equal. In other words, when you are in maybe the same circle, same association, you really want to try to do business, but maybe you're not in the same synergistic circle. People still want to do business with people they like, no interest.
Of course.
Yeah.
We meet somebody out and networking, not networking, at breakfast, lunch, or dinner, some meeting, my first subject is, hey, I just want to get to know you. You seem like a nice person. You seem like somebody that's interesting to talk to, and that's where the whole thing picks up from is do you have that urge that just says, okay, let's just carry this conversation beyond. Where are you from? Where have you lived? What jobs have you had? Where are things moving to? Where's your favorite place to take a vacation? All of these type of things that are there, that are all part of the process of getting to know and like somebody.
Now we're talking about really, meeting people face to face and networking, again, at an event, an association meeting or chamber of commerce or whatever. And both these books, The Go-Giver and by Bob Berg, which was written in 2007, and then Jeffrey Gitomer's Little Black Book of Connections was written in 2006. Yes, we had the online arena. We had some, MySpace was there. LinkedIn was out, of course, already started, and that other site before LinkedIn, I think we mentioned it last week, Plaxo. So
Yep.
There was some type of networking online, but people really didn't think of networking like we do today. So how can we apply these lessons? They wrote these books as thought leaders way before we started the social networking. Mm-hmm. How can we take the lessons we learn in these books and start applying them to having social networking work for us? And is there a difference?
Well, that was my question to you. What's the difference between posting on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Google, and all the other ones that are out there, okay, and meeting somebody face to face? The networking side of it and the getting to know somebody's side of it, there is no difference in my mind. You go to a networking event, you say hi, you may sense there's an opportunity either for business or friendship. Where do you go? Most of the time today, we don't pick up our smartphones and give them a call. We go look at Facebook. We go look at LinkedIn. We go look at Twitter. All of these places.
Learning more.
Where you have an opportunity to see who somebody is, or as we like to say, be known before you're needed in that whole process. But when you start looking at if it's going to be primarily business, obviously we're going to jump all over LinkedIn and see what's happening there. On those lines, you got Facebook, both for business and personal, and you need both sides. If you're making a personal friend, hey, what do they do for business? It'd be nice to know. Mm-hmm. Or if you have a business acquaintance, hey, what do they like to do in their spare time?
It really helps you learn more about others when you are meeting them. I like to, when I meet someone face to face, and then, find out which social network they're the most active on and connect with them there. Start having a more deeper conversation, because sometimes I don't get to a specific network meeting every, if it's an after hours, maybe I'm only there every other month. I don't necessarily get there every month because of so many other different, our schedule gets kind of crazy sometimes.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. But what I want to do is I don't want another month or, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks to go. And if we don't have time to do a schedule of what we call the one-on-one, and for those listeners that don't understand the one-on-one, it's basically just a meet and greet where you sit down and you're not going out to dinner or lunch or whatever. I mean, we met at a breakfast place today because Richard was hungry. So he got to have his eggs and eat and network too, right? But, but we actually just sat there over coffee and tea and just started again solidifying the relationship we started. Like I said, with Brian, we first met him. He came to one of our workshops. And then we met him again, he had his wife with him last week at a networking event that we were there at after hours. And from there, then we met today. So it was kind of the third time we were sitting together and just started sharing. And we learned so much about each other, about his four children, and and the hectic schedule he has this week with school ending and all the fun stuff. And we remember those days. But that's the type of things we spoke about. We started building again a relationship to be comfortable with him, and and he shared some fun experiences, and you shared back, and that type of thing, because you both are really focused on making sure that businesses are growing, and you both have solutions for that. So it could be a great collaboration now. That's another great thing when you're networking. You're not always networking to do business with each other. You're networking to see how you can collaborate, which is the topic of the Business Acceleration Summit, is collaborate with people you meet and take networking to a whole new level. And when you're online networking, social networking, I always like to make sure that I actually, we'll say LinkedIn, for example, when someone requests a connection with me on LinkedIn. And I want to make sure that when I connect with them, I start a conversation. I don't just click accept. I want to know a little bit about them. I go look at their profile. I find out how, maybe what kind of connections we have in common. I want to know a little bit more about what they do, maybe some of their expertises, and bring that into the conversation when you send a message back to them and say, hey, thanks for, appreciate you reaching out and connecting here on LinkedIn. Looking forward to getting to know more about you and networking with you here on LinkedIn. See that you're connected with so-and-so. How did you meet him? Or how'd you meet her? Or et cetera. Now you've put it back in their court, and then they can message back to you. And that's having a conversation online, and it could be someone local. It could be someone out of the area.
It could be somebody from any other country in the world.
Precisely.
But you mentioned an interesting point there, because I think there's a hang up in that process that goes on. Because a lot of people have that difficulty face-to-face or online of saying those words typed out or spoken. It's easy to go through Facebook and hit connect in LinkedIn, or jumped ahead of one, but with Facebook, like or friend or something along those lines. And it's easy to do that because you're not putting yourself at risk.
You're just connecting. Yeah, you're just
Yeah. So now I get to see some of their posts, or I get to see some of their blogs or anything else that they're putting up there. But the whole point is, in looking at it, it's a beginning. It's a beginning, and every relationship has a beginning.
You got that right. And you really want to learn how to just have a conversation with people, because it is hard at times when I know my very first time I went to a networking event with you, and it was a chamber event back in 98 when we first started our business. And, I was always used to sitting and working for someone else. Yes, I'm a very natural person. I did a lot of volunteer work in schools and was very easy to network with the people around me that way. But as far as in the business arena, I thought, oh my gosh, what do I say to them? I don't know their business. Not even thinking about it wasn't really that. But that's what you assume when you first go to a networking event. I got to talk about business. I only know what I know. I don't know about them, But when I started meeting people and I just started, finding out, what are some of your interests, or, or they mention their kids. Well, what are they active in school? Or, what are their ages? What school do they go to? Those are just little things. And when you start talking in that fashion with people, it's so much easier to have a conversation than thinking, okay, I don't know anything about banking. I'm going to meet these bankers, whatever, or in the financial industry, or accountants, or whatever. The only I can tell accountants is that my father was one, and I worked for him for half a day, and he fired me because
we don't want to go there,
because I talked too much. I didn't let the staff work as well as he wanted it. I'm a talker. Okay, so I'm definitely.
And you still are today.
I'm definitely a social one, right? But anyway. It's just fun stuff like that, and that's what I find why I love social media, because you can have fun conversations like that there.
But your little story about you're talking too much in your father's accounting business and all of that type of scenarios. Those are the stories that let people connect. You have to be a little bit vulnerable. Not your deep down dirty laundry, okay? Just you got to be willing to let somebody in that first level. You got to open up and being able to say, well, hey, here's a story, about that. People love to hear about my story about how I got involved with aviation and laying out in my parents' front yards and watching the airplanes fly over and all these things. But those are vulnerabilities that allow people to see into our inner soul. Who are we? What are we passionate about? What do we care about? What are we willing to give our time for? What are we willing to embrace?
And that is so important. It's kind of like, mastering that art of mingling, you know.
I love that. Yeah, that's cool.
You know, and it's not fluff. It's just letting people know who you are. And I cannot tell you how many people relate to you when you talk about, you know, when you were young, that you've been flying since you were 14, and they automatically assume you're a pilot, that you're flying for commercial. No, you've never. It's a recreational pilot.
Never wanted to do it a business because I never wanted to spoil it and have to be on a work schedule.
Exactly. And then another thing is when people want to know how did you guys, when they find out we work together and, you know, and we have the radio show together, they want to know, well, how did you two meet? And then you just, in a phone booth. And they look at you like, in a phone booth? A lot of the youngsters don't even know what a phone booth is.
They haven't got a clue.
But it starts a story, and then it just lets you really have fun and share some fun things, and, you know, and go on and share how, you know, you trap. I think you always say, I trapped her in a phone booth, is what you say, you know.
And I wouldn't let you out until you had to dance with me.
And that was the way Richard networked with me. And that was at a bar. So yes, you can network anywhere. And but we never really went out for a while. We just started having a conversation and just talked and smiled and, you know, and that type of thing. And we had a friendship.
Yes, we did.
We had a friendship, and that's what led us to, you know, starting the business and dating and then eventually getting married and et cetera. But that's where almost everything has to start with that friendship.
Absolutely true.
And that's what.
And business relationships are right in there as a prime part of it. Mm-hmm. You know, yeah. I want to know people's stories. Like we were talking this morning with Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, and you know, he told us about his story. You know, and I won't go into it because he hadn't given me permission to. Mm-hmm. But you know, I just enjoyed learning about him. I enjoyed seeing the passion that was coming out of him. I enjoyed seeing the sparkle in his eyes when he was talking about everything he did to get where he was. It's just amazing when people trust you enough to open up and allow themselves to be vulnerable, which they're really not, but you know, that's just the word we use.
And another great thing about networking when you're meeting people and getting to know them, it's always fun to introduce them to others that you know, that you think would be a good contact for them, or, you know, possibly, you know, oh gosh, you need to get together. He had given me a name that definitely he wants me to connect with over in the Orlando area. And then, you know, and today listening to him sharing with what he wants to know, I could think of some people I really definitely want to connect with him. In fact, one of our clients, that a new client of ours, she, in the arena that she's in, right away I thought of the people that I want to connect her with, and actually contacted someone, said I would love to introduce you to someone. That's what excites me when I get to know people. When you go with the expectation of just building a relationship, you don't get disappointed if there's no business done between you two. It may not always be that way. It could be eventually, maybe you will do business with each other, but in the beginning you're looking at how I can help you. How can I best serve you? What is it, you know, what type of businesses would you like to be introduced to? Or is there someone in the area that you might like to meet? Maybe perhaps I know them. And even sitting there today when we were networking and having our one-on-one, another individual walked in that we know as well. He had been to the networking event that we were at prior, and he sat in the restaurant there, and we brought him over and introduced him to Brian and connected them. And they're both in the financial industry, so a great connection. You never know, you know. But we ended up actually getting our breakfast paid for. So, Imran, if you're listening, this is going to be, we have a pay it forward, but we definitely want to thank you for breakfast. I haven't done my shout out on Facebook to you yet, but you know, that's just how the kind of relationships we built, because he and I are ambassadors in the chamber. We're friends. And
if you need any financial services folks out there, call Imran.
That's right. So Imran Muhammad. And it's so fun to really know that you're helping people and you've built those friendships and relationships. You never know where you are. You might meet somebody. It's kind of fun.
It's always fun. You know, nobody's the same. Nobody's got the same story. You know, it's just so cool to meet people and listen to their story and and watch their passion pour out of them when they get to talk about what they love to do.
Okay, how can you see that or sense that in social media or social networks?
Well, I think you can sense it in two ways. The first way is, are there passionate words in their post? Or is this just a business post? You know, are they talking about what they love to do? Are they talking about flying? You know, in my thing, you know, I have a page, Flying Above Marketing. You know, that's what the whole thing's about. And I've got part of me in there because I love to fly. And so I'm Flying Above Marketing, you know, taking a look at that. And so you kind of gain these pieces of the puzzle going along. You pick up these little pebbles along the way, and pretty soon you got a pretty good sandhill, and you're beginning to know somebody. And as that progresses, then maybe you want to flavor some of their work. Or maybe you know somebody that really needs their services or products. And you just allow it to happen naturally. Not force it. Just let it organically grow. And I think that is the essence of really getting to know somebody. Because you can't just pretend you're a psychiatrist or psychologist, whichever one it is, and think you're just going to pull it all out of them immediately. It's not going to happen. Because you have to have a mutual relationship.
Mm-hmm. Very well said there, Richard. And well, what about those of us, and again, I started sharing that very first networking event that we went to, and I was so uncomfortable not knowing what to say. So as I always tease, I kind of hid behind Richard. At that time, he was a little bit larger than me.
Kind of little.
Kind of little.
Hid behind him? No, you were centered behind me.
I was petrified. So with that, for those of us that were not comfortable, networking, what is a good tip that you can provide to them to really, I say have to get uncomfortable to get comfortable, but what is a tip that you could provide to somebody when they go to their very first networking event, or they have their first business, they've ventured out, they've joined a chamber, or they've joined an association, or et cetera, and they have to go meet people?
I would look at it from this standpoint. You meet somebody, they say their name and doing all this information transposition, but very few people describe what they do. Most people say, okay, I work for WCN Interactive Inc. Well, what does that tell me?
Yeah.
Not a great big story. And so when they come back with that, it says, oh, that's cool. What do you do? What is your job, or what do you do inside of WCN Interactive Inc.? And you just slowly unwind the thread. Mm-hmm. And just find little bits and little pieces at a time. Don't make it an inquisition. You're not a defense attorney, sitting in here in courtroom where you're trying to play nefarious games and all those things out there. Just go in there and have a talk. And if it naturally ends, it's okay. Let it naturally end. That's the reason you pick up a business card or some type of piece that has their information on it, mm-hmm. and you let it go from there. And then you call them back, you email them, you look them up on social media, and then you continue the conversation from there. That's
very good. And another thing that I always, coming from one that was very nervous going to a networking event and afraid that I might say something silly, or, they might think stupid. You get really nervous, you start putting yourself down, and you start thinking about, I don't know if I really can do this or not. I found that one of the easiest things to do is, is smiling and being open to conversation. Don't just stand in a corner, but stand where, when you see a group of people, and maybe sometimes, and this is hard, I know for some, come up to a conversation. At a networking event, it's okay. And you might just be standing there listening, and then maybe something will draw you into the conversation. But one of the best things to do is when you are coming to any type of a networking event, association or chamber, etc., stand in the front as people come in, and almost act like a host or hostess and shake their hands or say, welcome, glad to see you tonight, or something. They'll remember you.
Yes, they will.
They'll definitely remember you.
Maybe 10 seconds.
And and you start relaxing a little bit too. Because you're saying something, you're meeting people, and they might draw you into a conversation, etc. But I always make sure that one of the things that I do, instead of opening my mouth up and asking what they do, I want them to start talking about themselves. Because people that talk about themselves and you ask questions about them, they're going to remember you too, because they're going to think, wow, they really care about me. So one of the things I always will do is, how do you serve others? Or, and getting them experience saying something different than saying, what do you do? Or what company do you work for? Or maybe you see something that they're wearing, and you bring that to their attention. Wow, that necklace is beautiful. Did you make that? Especially if it looks, like a handcrafted, something really unique and standing out. So you can come up with some things like that. That really does help you start feeling a little more comfortable in the conversation. And online, I know that there are many people that I hear that are so uncomfortable about really sharing themselves online. They really just want to talk about their business. This is where you just have to really reach out and just connect with people and follow conversations and enter into these conversations. And then when you're at an event and you look at the face, you recognize them, you can feel more comfortable going and up to them and continuing the conversation. If I can add one more thing, what I like to do before I go to a networking event, I like to, and I know there's going to be certain people there, I like to go look at their social profiles and see what's happening. And then when I meet them at these events, I'll say, wow, that was really an exciting basketball game your son had last night, wasn't it? And they're like, how did you know? Oh my gosh, I really enjoyed what you shared on social media last night about your son making that, the winning score or something along that line. People like, wow, that really makes you stand out.
Oh, it does. Hopefully not in a freaky way. But,
no, I'm a stalker.
Not for you. It would not.
They remember we're connected. Yeah, we're connected. That we're on Facebook.
But the fact that when you phrased it right there, it was very interesting that you were kind of giving them a compliment.
Yeah.
At the same time. Hey, I saw in your post, oh, you're paying attention to me. That, and you tell them what that is. Whoa.
Especially if they just came back from vacation, like, wow, I've done this many times. Wow, I felt like I was on vacation with you. I loved all those photos you shared. Thank you. Just bringing those type of things.
That sounds like one of our chamber presidents.
So, yeah, I did. Actually, the other night, I told her, I said, gosh, what fun, she's always traveling. So, yeah, it really does make them feel good knowing that you are following them. And I'm stalking them, and I'm following them, and I'm keeping up to date with what's happening in their lives. And it just really, again, that's that relationship. And I love that type of getting to know people, and it's helped me in my business as far as getting more comfortable talking to people and then bringing them on as clients because we're friends first.
Absolutely. It's all right to give people compliments and all of these things, but you need to be receptive of them giving you a compliment back. And you don't need to sit there and say, oh, that's nothing. Well, somebody was trying to compliment you and you just swatted it down. Let them have their compliment. If you feel a little embarrassed or, you don't exactly know what to say, just smile and nod your head. They understand. That shows an emotion that's easily understood, that's easily acknowledged on just being that magnificent person you are.
You have to be able to receive, and that's hard. That is hard.
For a lot of people, it's a lot harder to receive than it is to give.
I know I've done many times, and I was this way. Again, back when I was starting some 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago. Oh, next year will be 20 years for our business, Richard. Oh, Lordy. When people would say something, I would be that type of person. Oh, really? This old thing? what a nice dress. Oh, this whole thing, instead of saying thank you. So I recommend you practice in front of a mirror saying thank you. Practice in the mirror asking questions. People, like I said, when you're asking questions of people and getting them talking about themselves, they really remember that.
Yeah. And you brought up an interesting point, and I'm just going to relate it back to body language. When you go into a networking facility, is your head kind of slightly cocked down where you're not really making eye-to-eye contact? Are your shoulders pulled back like you're at attention and you're alert, or are they kind of drooped forward? Mm-hmm. Where are your hands? Do you walk with a little bit of a bounce in your step? Like you're having a good time, like you're enjoying life? Like you really want to be there? All these little things are front and center on the people you're communicating with. Mm-hmm. They're receiving all this input. Mm-hmm. And while they may not consciously absorb it at the moment, subconsciously it's boom, it's right there in front of them. And sometimes we get that little thing, okay, I need to get out of here. I'm not comfortable, not exactly sure why. And all of a sudden, I got to go see somebody over here.
What is the best way to exit a conversation, though? Because, that can get uncomfortable. If you're in the middle of a conversation with someone, you realize that they're maybe dominating, and you really know that you're there networking. You don't want to stay too long in a conversation. It depends on the event, of course. But what would be one of the best ways to exit instead of just saying you got to go talk to somebody else? Should you wait until you end the conversation after you speaking or after they do?
It would be me, mm-hmm. on that side of it. One of the things I like to do as a tactic, if I'm talking to somebody and I'm looking for something else, if somebody else walks by I know, I'll grab them, I'll put out my hand on their shoulder and say, do you know? And whatever their name
great
is.
Idea. Yeah.
And that, you two need to have a conversation.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And I walk away looking like a good connector, even though I was just trying to bail on a conversation, right. And hopefully nobody's recording this.
And that's another tip for those that are networking new.
Yes.
Try not to dominate too much. Do understand that you're there to meet and mingle with a lot of people. So, and don't try to sell them. Don't try to just keep handing cards out. I normally do not hand a card out to anybody unless they ask.
Yeah, don't card bomb, don't flyer bomb, because nobody cares. So, nobody really cares.
Don't give them a flyer unless you're talking with them and then they ask you and they say, oh, that would be really interesting. I'd love to know more. Well, I happen to have a flyer here. Would you want one? To take a look at it, and then you can go look at more online. Don't say, oh, here, sign up right now. I'm taking, you have to really be careful with how you do all that. So, yeah, definitely, and making sure you're shaking hands. When I was teaching networking, I always taught people to wear their name badges on their right side instead of the left side, because you're shaking hands with your right, so you're kind of looking across. There's so many neat networking tips that we are all taught in networking classes, but I think today's conversation, how we just really focus on the relationships, is so important. And we're getting ready to end, but I wanted to end one more passage from the Jeffrey Gitomer Little Black Book of Connections. He says, connecting is all about your friendliness, your ability to engage, and your willingness to give value first. When you combine those three attributes, you will have uncovered the secret of powerful connections that lead to rich relationships. So really remember, no matter where you are when you're talking to people, your focus should be on just really having a conversation and building a relationship and seeing where that can go. And not all relationships will end, in lots of great profits or business, but you don't know where that relationship can end.
You don't know where it's going to end, and you don't know who they know.
I know.
And those are two humongous variables that we must consider in networking, because you need to look at networking as a business practice, just like accounting, just like making phone calls, just like anything else. You've got to build the relationship and let it flourish naturally.
That's right. And I will make, on our So Social Radio show page, we have these books listed for you so that you can look at these references and definitely take your networking to a new level build those relationships, give that value to those that you meet. But with that, we are down to the last few seconds, Richard. So I want to just tell everyone, make sure you join us every Wednesday at 12 noon on talknetworkradio.com. Listen to the So Social Radio Show and make sure you have more fun
and more profits.